I've gone back and forth about whether to share this, but I think I need to put it somewhere. This happened when I was a sophomore at school in the Northeast. I won't say which one, and I'm in Kappa. I'm an English major, and I've always taken my academics pretty seriously because I'm trying to get into law school after I graduate. That's relevant context for what I'm about to tell you. Last semester, I enrolled in this upper-level course on English Romanticism. The class was pretty small, maybe 25 students in total, and it was mostly juniors and seniors. There was a professor who led the seminars, of course, but most of the actual teaching was done by the TA during discussion sections. His name was Romer, and yes, that was his real name. I still don't know if it was a first or last name situation, but that's what everyone called him. He was maybe late 20s, kind of lanky, and gave off this I'm in a band but not a good one type of energy. He was kind of just an oddball. Anyway, the class itself was fine. A lot of close reading, a lot of discussion about nature and memory, and all that romantic nonsense. But participation was pretty dead most days. People would just sit there and wait for Romer to fill the silence, which he hated. You could tell it made him uncomfortable, which was problematic because then he'd start cold calling on people and chirping at them when they clearly didn't know what was going on. There was one guy, though, who always seemed to keep things alive. His name was Luke. He was tall with brown hair, and the only other thing I knew about him was that he was in one of the better frats on campus. He had this way of making jokes at just the right moment, not to be annoying, but to break the tension when things got awkward, and he actually did the reading, which was rare. When he talked, it was clear he knew his stuff, so the humor felt earned. He wasn't trying to be the class clown, he just had a presence. I remember thinking he was smart but kind of goofy. Anyway, since I needed to participate for my GPA, I ended up being one of the only other people who talked regularly. So it was usually me, Luke, and maybe 2 or 3 others carrying the discussion while everyone else zoned out. Romer seemed to appreciate it. He'd nod along when I made a point, and sometimes he'd build on what I said in a way that felt validating. For my first essay, and I remember this vividly, I wrote about ambiguity in Wordsworth's Tintern Abbey. It wasn't groundbreaking, but I was proud of it. When I got it back, Romer had written these long, detailed comments in the margins, not just corrections, actual agreement with my ideas. But after that, I noticed things started to shift a bit. Romer began paying more attention to me in class. He'd call on me more often, ask follow-up questions to my answers, make eye contact with me for long periods of time, stuff like that. At first, I told myself I was imagining it. TAs take a liking to certain students all the time, it's not that unusual. But then he started asking me things that felt less academic. I brushed it off though, I had other things going on. Around the same time, I started running into Luke more and more outside of class. Our sorority and his fraternity had a lot of overlap. I think Greek life is mostly stupid, but we were both in, I guess, what you'd consider top houses at our school. So we had a lot of joint mixers, date nights, and just always went to the same parties. And Luke was just always there, so naturally, we just ended up talking more and more, and I started taking a liking to him. After a few weeks of this, he asked if I wanted to grab dinner sometime, and I said sure. We went on maybe 3 dates before things progressed. He was sweet, attentive, all the things you'd want. We started sleeping together, and everything felt normal. I wasn't head over heels or anything, but I liked him. It was uncomplicated, low maintenance, and mostly painless. One afternoon after class, I was walking to my car when I saw Luke standing behind the lecture hall, smoking a cigarette with Romer. They were talking like they knew each other, which struck me as weird. I didn't even know Luke smoked. When I asked him about it later, he laughed and said he was just trying to get on Romer's good side so he wouldn't have to try as hard toward the end of the semester. I told him that was kind of pathetic, and he laughed and said he'd take pathetic over a bad grade any day. A few weeks later, when I came back, I noticed his phone was lying next to him on the bed, with a YouTube video playing. I know I shouldn't have looked, but curiosity got the better of me. Can you blame me? I'm a college girl in a sorority. The types of guys I'm surrounded by would cause any rational person to develop trust issues. So I went through his phone. I'm not sure what I was expecting to find, but I was definitely not expecting to find a collection of photos of me, and there were a lot of them. Some were more benign. Photos of me going about my day, or studying, or walking to class. But there were others. I'll let you fill in the blanks yourself, but they were, let's just say, suggestive. Some of them were ones I'd sent him, but there were quite a few that I had no recollection of ever taking. I wasn't mad or anything, mostly creeped out, like if he had asked me for most of them, I probably wouldn't have been opposed at all. I didn't wake him up that night. I just went back to sleep, not really knowing how to feel. I ended up keeping things to myself, partly because I was embarrassed, but partly because I didn't want him to know I'd snooped through his phone. A week later, after he'd fallen asleep again, I decided to try guessing his password, which actually wasn't too hard. It was just his birthday, but reversed. This time, I went deeper. Brace yourself, because things move really fast from this point forward. I checked his messages, his deleted photos, everything, and I found something horrifying. He'd been sending photos of me, those photos of me, to an unsaved number, regularly for weeks. Basically the entire duration of time we'd been seeing each other. It was sick, and it was probably illegal too, but I couldn't think about that. I was shaking. I took pictures of everything, and then I started to cry. I couldn't control myself. I basically slapped him awake and demanded to know who the number belonged to, and he stumbled through this ridiculous story about how it was just his backup phone, how he liked to have copies of everything in case his main phone got lost. I knew instantly that was bullshit. I stormed out before he could convince me to stay. I was a complete wreck. I was a psychological mess, and I felt gross. I really didn't want to get into the immediate aftermath of everything, so I won't. Just know that it was probably the worst week of my life. The last thing I need is for that trauma to reopen if anyone figures out who I am or anything. So that's another reason I'm keeping the details to a minimum. The unknown number ended up belonging to Romer, my TA. The police got involved, and Luke confessed pretty quickly once they started pressing him. He admitted that Romer had been paying him, hundreds of dollars apparently, in exchange for photos. The whole thing had been going on since the beginning of the semester, maybe longer. I don't know all the details, and honestly, I don't want to. Luke got expelled from university, and Romer got fired. I'm pretty sure there was jail time involved as well, although I do remember thinking whatever punishment they got wasn't nearly enough to make me feel compensated. That was over a year and a half ago. I'm a senior now, and I'm almost done with school. I'm kind of relieved about that, to be honest. I've dealt with things in my own way, and I won't get into that, but I thought everything was behind me. A few weeks ago, though, I started noticing something. There's this silver sedan that's been parked outside my sorority late at night. Not every night, but enough that I've started paying attention. I haven't seen anyone get in or out of it. I don't know if it's one of them. I'm probably being paranoid, but it's really freaking me out. And honestly, I'm not sure how they'd even know I live here now. I moved into the house well after the Luke situation. Anyway, if anything else happens, I'll update.